Hey guys, the program I'm going to explain now is the program of call by value, call by reference, and call by pointer. Now, you're transitioning from C to C++, so I'll be writing down the first few programs just for you to get habituated how to write it and the syntax of it. So, let me explain it first. What is call by value? Now, you had call by value and call by pointer in C, but there's an additional call by reference. Now, what is call by value? Call by value is basically you giving a copy, an additional copy of the local variable to the function, so that when the function manipulates it and performs a task, the operation or the updation is not visible in the calling function. So the updation only happens in the called function but does not reflect in the calling function. However, in call by reference, we see that you're sending a reference uh, in the arguments. So once the called function comes, you'll see that inside the called function, uh, even if there's an updation, you'll see that both in the called and the calling functions, there's a modification, there's a reflection of the modification of the variable. And in call by pointer, you send a pointer in the arguments so that in the called function, when you perform a task, you have to use a dereferenced version of the variable. So you write star a equal to something, all right? You don't just write a is equal to something because you're using a pointer. So you'll dereference it, which means you'll access the address space of the variable. So both in call by uh, reference and call by pointer, the original variable in the calling function will be modified too because they share the same address space. However, for call by value, the updations in the calling function won't be reflected in the called functions because it is just a copy that you're sending and not the actual variable. Now we'll start off C++ here. Now this is just like writing hashtag include as standard input output dot h uh, in C. Now if you don't want to use standard in every output functions that you use, that is cout functions, you need to write using namespace std. And we'll use a swap function here to explain how uh, call by value and all of that works, and we'll give them two parameters to swap two variable. Now let's start off main. Main is similar to C, right? And local variable declarations are almost the same, and b equals 200. So we'll do a printout statement. Now the printout statement is not printf but cout, and those output symbols. Now for cout, which is the output functions, you have right side facing quotes, the French quotation marks. Now there's an input function called cin, and you have left side facing quotation marks. So we'll start off by cout right here, right side facing marks, and before swap and new line function. A is and output an A, and then another B is. Okay, let's print a new line function after A. B is and B. And for backslash n, you can actually use backslash n or endl. Both almost mean the same. Okay, now we're done with the cout functions. What we do is we get out of the main, or inside the main we call a swap function, which we'll be writing soon. Swap A and B. And of course, after the swap in the calling function, you need to know what's happening. So just copy this entire thing, paste it here. This is after swap, so I'm changing it to after swap, right? And after that, you basically have to return 0 for successful execution. This is almost the same as C. Once we've done that, we can start writing swap. Now I'm using void swap here. It's almost similar to C. Data types, and then function name, and then arguments. Int x, int y, those are the formal arguments. Start off with an int temp, using a temporary variable for changing. Now you can do this without a temporary variable as well, but I'll be using temporary variable right now. X equal to y and y equals temp. Once that is done, we just return and then close. Because it's void, we just don't return anything, we just say return. So once that is done, let's execute this and see. Alright guys, so it just told me that over here I didn't place a semicolon. That was the only thing that I did wrong. And once that was sorted, it gave me before swap 100 200, after swap 100 200. Why? Because we're not actually sending the reference or the address space of the variable, but we're sending additional copies of the variable, and the original copies are kept in the stack space, and the function swap is being executed first, and after that this variables come back from the stack, and so we see that before swap and after swap it's 100. Now we can also, to illustrate this in a better sense, we can just say during swap and see during swap, right? Execute it, and sorry again, void int, what did we do? A was not okay. A and B are not there. Here it's x and y, right? X and y. Once we've done that, we execute, and 100 200. During swap it is 200 and 100, and this happens second because first is cout, then the function, and the third is the next cout statement after swap, that is 100 and 200. So nothing changes in this main function, even though in the swap function it changes. So you got that right. Now we move on to a function called by reference. Now I'll be copying this onto some other place. Let me see. Let me copy this over here and go back. Oh shoot. Alright. Now going back to that, in call by reference, we have, how do you change in call by reference? Now to change this, there's only two things that you have to do, or one thing is using ampersand, because this is a reference, and doing the same over here, because again it's ampersand. And once you've done that, you go into, yeah, that's almost about it, right? For reference, you don't need to dereference it or something. You have to use it the same way you use it as a normal value, and then it just happens. Just go and execute it, and okay, apology accepted. You see that here it's 100 and 200 before the swap. During the swap it's 200 and 100, and after the swap you go back to the main and you see that it's 200 and 100. That means the swap has, the updation in the swap function has been reflected in the main. Why is that? Because we're sending a reference of the variable, that is the address space of the variable. Alright, having said that, there's another small changes that you have to make for call by pointer. Of course, you've guessed it, the first thing is instead of referencing statement, you just write stars there to indicate pointers. Once you've done that, you've also to see that during the swap, because it's a pointer, you send the address of A and B, not just A and B, because these pointers will accept address to A and B, not A and B, right? Let me explain that once again. See, once you've kept pointers in the formal parameters, these pointers accepts addresses to the variables. So you just don't give A and B right here. That's incorrect. That will throw you a syntax error, because you'll have to be sending the addresses into pointers so that these pointers will point to that address of A and B. So X and Y are pointers which reflect the addresses of A and B. So X and Y are pointers to A and B. Alright, got that? And X and Y will store the addresses of A and B. Having said that, now the temp, you can use a normal regular temp, but you have to dereference both X and Y, because X and Y, like I told you, carry the addresses of A and B, and once you dereference it, you go and get the value of A and B. So let me show you one thing. So X is the address of A. Star X is dereferencing the address of A and going to get the value of A. Alright, having said that, we'll just execute this. And sorry, okay, so before main it's 100 and 200. Excellent, this is what I wanted. After main it's 200 and 100. We see that the updation is reflected in the main. But what are 0x this kind of symbols you're seeing? Hexadecimal numbers. So those are the addresses of both A and B. Like I said, if you write X, you're going to get the address. If you write star X, you're going to go into the address, get the value, dereference it, get the value as boom, 200 and 100. Alright, hope you enjoyed this and hope you learned about the different types of call by value, reference, and pointer. Thank you.